It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 3rd, 2001. We've got 4 movies to look at today, so let's just go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with one of the biggest hits of the summer, and that is the long-awaited sequel to Rush Hour, Rush Hour 2. So, of course, Rush Hour 2 is the sequel to Rush Hour, in which you have Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker back again as Chief Lee and James Carter as they go on to Hong Kong on vacation, only to be thwarted by a murder case involving 2 U.S. Customs agents at a bombing at the American Embassy. And Lee suspects that the crime is linked to the triad crime lord played by John Lone. And this kind of took the same approach to the Lethal Weapon series in terms of the success factor. Lethal Weapon was a big success, but it wasn't like a $100 million success when it first came out. But then Lethal Weapon 2 came out, made more than double that at the box office, and kind of almost similar to like The Naked Gun and Austin Powers. Rush Hour had that same effect. Rush Hour was a big hit. It did make over $130 million here in America, but this one made more than twice that, I believe. I think it was $260 million, if I'm not mistaken. Now I'm kind of curious. I was close. 226, which is still way more than they were expecting for this movie, and it just showed that there was a brand appeal for this, even though this is not as good as the original Rush Hour movie, and it definitely is not as good as the original Rush Hour film. But it does have those moments in there that do make it very funny and do make it worth it in the long run. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker still have a lot of great chemistry together. There's still a lot of great action sequences in here. A good supporting cast. I mean, Rosalind Sanchez is very beautiful to look at in this movie. And you get a glimpse of Memoirs of a Geisha's Zhang Ziyi. And she was also in House of Flying Daggers as well as Hero. Very good actress, very good martial artist actress. And she does a lot of good action sequences in this particular film. It's still a fun movie for what it is. It's more of a lot of the same stuff we've seen done over and over again, except this time it's Chris Tucker going to Hong Kong instead of Jackie Chan having to come to L.A. And so, you know, the roles are reversed in a way, and you basically get a bigger sequel because that's exactly what you expect for a sequel like this: a bigger storyline, bigger adventure, bigger comedy, bigger everything. And most of the time, bigger isn't always great. But if it's fun enough on its own, it can make it work in this case. In this case, I think it does work on its own. There are a lot of great moments in this particular movie that I do really like a lot. And like I said, it's not as good as the original Rush Hour film. But in terms of comedy sequels, it's always you can always expect worse. But this one's almost as good, if not just as good as the original film. It definitely comes close, but more times than not, it's definitely a lesser film compared to the first movie. But I thought it was still fine for what it is. I recommend it. Rush Hour 2. If you like the first one, you'll definitely like this one as well. So let us move on to our next movie, which is Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews in The Princess Diaries. So The Princess Diaries is certainly one of those interesting little stories that kind of is very reminiscent to the movie itself. When they were making the movie and when the movie was coming out, a lot of people expected this movie to not be a big hit, mostly because of the G rating, and also because of the subject matter, and kind of like with the main character in this movie, kind of proved everybody wrong, and it turned out to be one of the biggest surprise hits of the year, and eventually established Anne Hathaway's career as a leading actress. So you have a storyline here where she plays a shy American teenager who learns she's heiress to the throne of a European kingdom, and under the tutelage of her strange grandmother, played by Julie Andrews, the kingdom's reigning queen, Mia must decide whether to claim the throne she inherited or renounce her title permanently. And something else I didn't notice about this until recently: Whitney Houston produced this movie. I did not realize that, but you see her name at the end of the credits there as a producer, so that's kind of a big surprise. I had no idea she was attached to this movie as a producer. But then again, I think her company is Roundhouse Productions. I think it is. So maybe that's something I just never really took into account. But yeah, this was an idea that had been in development for a while now, and actually was written mostly with the idea that the film was not going to be very successful, but especially when you consider it's opening in the month of August, and family films do not usually do very well in the month of August. But nevertheless, this thing made a ton of money. It was an unexpected hit, led to a sequel that was not quite as successful, but still successful enough to make money back. But Gary Marshall directed this movie too. This is a film that's it's definitely not my acquired taste, kind of like with Legally Blonde. I mean, we went to go see this movie in theaters mostly because my sister wanted to see it, and I saw it, I got through it okay, but like me personally, just for me in particular, I didn't think it really held up all that well as a kid, and even now when I watched it, it's just kind of like, it's fine for what it is. But again, it wasn't made for me. It was made specifically to show what Anne Hathaway can do as a leading actress, and you get her and Mary Poppins together, so that's something there. And I guess it is more centered, more the target audience is aiming towards women in general, mostly younger, mostly preteens, kids, all that type of stuff. And they grew up with this movie, and they've grown up, and over 20 years later, it has still become a classic to them for a number of different reasons. But for me personally, it's just kind of like, it just wasn't my thing, and I think that's not really much of a surprise whatsoever. But I mean, I don't hate it per se. It just wasn't made for me. I think the target audience it was going for ate this up, and rightfully so. It's a film that definitely works for me. What I think works about it, Julie Andrews still doing what she does best. I think the casting overall is very well done. Larry Miller's very good in here. Hector Elizondo, Heather Matarazzo, of course, Anne Hathaway showing what she can do as a leading actress. I think it works. I think it works on those levels for me. It's not one I'd watch over and over again, but if I was going to watch it again, I'd watch it to see where Anne Hathaway got her start from as the actress that we know her as today. Like I said, not made for me. The target audience definitely is going to love it, but me personally, it's just fine for what it is. Kind of like with Legally Blonde. So with that said, let's move on to our next movie, a movie that I guess I know the audience that it's made for. I just don't think they went to go see it. Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie in the erotic thriller Original Sin. Well, the sin may be original, but the movie certainly is not. Obvious joke right there. But you have Antonio Banderas selecting a mail-order bride. He's surprised to see the beauty who appears before him. She alleges that she sent false pictures to him to assure that he would love her for what she is and not for her beauty. However, what she is a con artist, a prostitute, and an actress who teams up with a fellow actor to steal money from men. When she does that, what she does not expect is that she falls in love with a new husband and ultimately must decide between him and her sadistic former lover. Contains explicit sex, including sadistic acts as Thomas Jane cuts Jolie's back with a knife as part of their lovemaking. And literally, I'm reading this off of IMDb. That's literally what they say here. You don't believe me? Take a look at this. Yeah, that's exactly what it says on the IMDb page for this. I mean, erotic, a guy that's basically seducing Angelina Jolie by having a knife put close to her back. I guess that's considered sexy, I guess. I don't know. But this was directed by Michael Christopher, who directed Angelina Jolie in Gia, which was a pretty good movie. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun. It was good for what it is. Showing what Angelina Jolie could do as a leading actress. But with that said, though, even with somebody like Antonio Banderas involved in this, it just goes to show you that Basic Instinct was a lightning in a bottle. That was something that you couldn't do twice in a row. That movie worked because you had a good storyline, two really good actors in Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas, and a very intriguing mystery. But in this case, it's just like they're not even trying anymore, and it's just like nobody really remembers what made Basic Instinct the hit that it was, and it was because the mystery was very good, and most of the elements of the film were very interesting to watch, and you could buy into the sex appeal in that movie between the two leads and pretty much everybody involved in that film. This feels like they're just forcing it in. It's just like, it's not even being that great about it either. It's very melodramatic. The writing is terrible. The acting deserves way better than anything that's coming out of this movie. Bad script writing, bad plotting, a twist that you can easily see coming a mile away. It's just like, it's just not worth it when it's all said and done. It's really, really not a good movie in any way, shape, or form. Like, even if you're looking for the sex appeal, I mean, go online. You can find that stuff online. And even then, it's not really that much to make you say, well, I really was curious about this movie until I saw those scenes. Like, it's not even worth it for that. That's how bad this movie is. Like, it's not even worth it to see the sex scenes in it. And that just shows you how bad of a movie this really is. It's just a movie that tries to bring people in by putting up the sex appeal, and then when they realize that they've got your money, they lock the door behind you, and you're stuck in there for over 2 hours watching this garbage. Plain and simple, pretty much what this movie is. Original Sin. Ain't nothing original about it. So, let's go ahead and wrap this up with our last movie, and that is Apocalypse Now Redux. So what makes this version of Apocalypse Now different than the regular version? Well, Francis Ford Coppola teamed up with his editor and longtime collaborator Walter Murch to add in 49 minutes of extra material that had been removed from the initial theatrical release, and it's basically a significant re-edited version of the original film. And a lot of work had to be done on these new scenes because of the off-screen noises during the shoot. Most of the dialogue was impossible to hear, so they had to bring everybody that they could back to re-record these lines, which is very tough to do because a lot of these actors that were in this movie were not involved in this version of this. There was also actually new music also added into the elements as well. They brought in new cinematography from Coppola's director Vittorio Storaro, who would return from Italy to head the development of a new color balance for the film and the new scenes. And he had learned that a Technicolor dye transfer process was being brought back, which is a 3-step process that makes the color highly saturated and has consistent black tones. So he was basically asked to work on this movie, and he needed to cut the original negatives of Apocalypse Now, leaving Apocalypse Now Redux the only versions available. So he decided to do it when convinced by Coppola that this version would be the one that would be remembered. And it was remembered, probably not for the reasons that I think they wanted it to. I mean, original Apocalypse Now is a classic movie, don't get me wrong, and it is interesting to see a different take on this storyline in particular, but 49 minutes of new material is a bit much. This movie's already pushing it at about at about 2 hours long, and you're going to add more material to this. This is going to add more to the material of it. And I mean, the new stuff is fine. It's fine for what it is, but I kind of compare it to what they did with when Fox re-released Big and That Thing You Do with extended editions back in 2007 on DVD. They added in new footage to try to give more storylines to different characters that didn't get a whole lot in the original cuts of the movie. But those parts needed to be cut out because when you put those back in the movie, it really adds to the runtime, and it really drags the film along too much. And the same thing happens in this movie here. A lot of the new scenes don't really do anything new or exciting to add to the film's overall impact overall. And in fact, it actually slows the pacing down even more when you add the new stuff in there. And it's not quite E.T. levels of bad, like stuff like E.T., like how E.T., the re-release that would be coming out in about a couple months from now, from this point, would be heavily criticized for the changes that Spielberg made. It's not quite that bad, but it's bordering on those levels when you add scenes like this that don't really add anything new to the overall storyline that works so well the first time around. It was such a unique film experience on its own merits. I mean, the original Apocalypse Now works fine for what it is. Now, does that make this movie bad in any way, shape, or form, this Redux version? I can't really say it doesn't, but it definitely does feel like it's an inferior version of a movie that was really one of the most unique experiences of the time period with that original film, and just such a hell to put together in the long run. I mean, there's documentaries about this movie and the behind-the-scenes hell that took place on it that are just as good, if not better, than the original movie. I mean, but this, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad version of the film. And I'm glad that there is that you can still find the original version of this. I mean, it's not like George Lucas is keeping. It's not like George Lucas, where Francis Ford Coppola is keeping all the copies of this movie away somewhere, so no studio can ever get it. I mean, it's just that obvious that this is not that situation whatsoever. And for what it is, it's fine for what it is. But again, it's nothing that's really going to say that this is something that you need to see that's much better than the original film. It's fine for what it is, but the original Apocalypse Now, I think, still stands up more than anything that comes from this movie, hands down. This version of the movie, I should say, but that's just my thoughts on it. So, Apocalypse Now Redux. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll take a look at 3 more movies, including another comedy sequel that was a massive hit, American Pie 2. We also have Nicole Kidman in The Others, and Chris Rock and Bill Murray in The Farrelly Brothers live-action animated hybrid Osmosis Jones. And we'll check a look at those movies the next time we meet. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plates on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.